Okay.
And we are live. The Gridiron are just back for week 5. 2 guests back again. Second week in a row. Chris Deluca, host of Dugout Debrief. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Feeling a little bit anxious for the first time in a long time. Both my Dodgers and Steelers play at the exact same time, so I'm going to have to go have the multi-TV set up here once we're off the program. But I'm very excited, and I'm very happy to be back on this show.
Awesome. And making his first appearance on the show, Jason Calenzo, co-host of Sideline Savants with Wayne Thomas. Jason, how are you doing tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. Still alive in a bunch of my fantasy games. I'm in 4 leagues, so fantasy football has been off the charts this weekend. My Giants giving me a heart attack again. They like starting games going down a touchdown and then come back and win in crazy fashion. So I'm a little sweaty, but I'm doing good, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate being on.
I'm super excited to have both of y'all on, and we're going to start off today's show with something a little bit different because the Steelers don't have a game to recap. We're going to preview that later on in the show. We will start today with a fantasy football quick hit. So we're each going to take our turn talking about how our fantasy teams are doing and stuff like that. Jason, you brought up fantasy first, so we'll have you go first and recap how you're doing so far.
I appreciate that. Of course, our fantasy show, Sideline Savants, 12 o'clock Wednesdays. Again, I'm alive in all my fantasy leagues right now. One of my biggest hits right now, Jamar Chase, 41 points. I have him in a couple of my leagues, putting up video game numbers. If Cincinnati doesn't sign him, they're insane because he's just had a phenomenal game. One of my biggest losses, I started Jordan Love over Burrow. Burrow dropped over 45 points. He had a phenomenal game. Jordan Love had a decent game, a little over 20 points, but it is nothing more painful in fantasy football than leaving points on the bench. I'm going to win that league or that league here, but I got lucky because 45 points on your bench stinks. So still alive in all my games.
That's good. Chris, how are you doing in fantasy today?
So overall, it's been a really close one. I've had a rough start. So I am not in the Boom Broadcasting League because I joined Boom Broadcasting just a hair late, but in what I consider to be my main league with my college buddies up at WVU. I had a good start. We were actually discussing who to start, either Caleb Williams or Joe Flacco. I ended up going with Caleb Williams. I don't regret the decision overall because it was only a difference of 3 points. Travis Etienne, I was also discussing with you before, was just been very frustrating seeing Tank Bigsby get those 2 touchdowns. But luckily, Swift and Moore have kept me in the game. That last second Raiders touchdown in the Denver game really, really killed me, though. It's close. I need roughly about 15 to 20 or so between George Pickens and Freiermuth, which, I'm wearing the Pickens jersey. We can kind of hope that works out. But overall, it's been a hard, rough start. Luckily, I've not left a lot of points on the bench so far. Regardless, I will have the max amount of points that I physically can have. So at least I know even if I lose this week, I will have left everything on the field.
That's good. I'm having pretty good week too. Shannon Smith watching. Appreciate you, Shannon. A big one for me in one of my leagues, I have J.K. Dobbins and Montgomery on bye, and Joe Mixon was hurt. So I had to dip into the waiver wire. I had to pick up Kareem Hunt, who has yet to play. And the second running back I picked up was Tyrone Tracy Jr., who to me absolutely went off. I had some hope for him. I wasn't expecting 14 points out of him, which isn't a lot, but 120 rushing yards. The guy killed it as far as I'm concerned. That same league, I had Brock Bowers at tight end, first career touchdown, 97 yards, 8 receptions. Huge game from him. That's in the Boom Broadcasting Redraft League that we had last year. I think I'm fixing to be tied for at least second place if the results hold. Pretty good overall. I am going to lose in my Dynasty League because Joe Burrow and T. Higgins remembered how to play football, and they went off for what is that? Combined like almost 70 points. So absolutely ridiculous. But I'll take it. I'll take 3-1 on the week. But moving on to some actual football, we're going to touch on my Panthers first. And this felt like a crash back to reality. After the offense actually looked functional for 2 weeks, it felt like it was just Bryce Young at quarterback again the whole time. First half was checkdowns. He only had like 8 yards or something in the first quarter. It felt ridiculous. Chuba Hubbard still had a great game too, but the injury bug is killing the Carolina Panthers. 4 more players go down in this game. We don't know how long they're going to be out for. And it's not like 4 backups or anything. These are 4 key players for this team. Taylor Moton, Tommy Tremble, Jadeveon Clowney, and Austin Corbett. But yeah, offense bad all around. The defense started a fight at the end of the fourth quarter, just undisciplined. It feels like they're really missing the veteran leadership of Shaq Thompson. But to hand the ball off to y'all, Jason, you'll take this first. Do you think Andy Dalton has come back to reality to an extent and he won't keep playing at the same level? Or do you think he can bounce back and this is more of a one-off?
I mean, that's tough. Andy Dalton is a professional quarterback, but when you have literally no defense, I mean, you're like dipping into the practice squad right now, because that defense, the Chicago Bears, ate you guys up, especially in that secondary. And I don't know, Andy Dalton being the age that he is and how much football he's actually played, I don't see this being him be able to get through this season at all. It's going to be rough as a Panthers fan. I mean, your boy Deontay Johnson, you guys brought this guy from the Steelers, only had 23 receiving yards. So, I mean, when your number one wide receiver only gets 23 yards, and your defense gives up that many points to the baby bear rookie there, Caleb Williams, it's going to be a long, rough season as a Panthers fan.
Boom Broadcasting president Michael Davis in the comments, he's saying Andy Dalton's doing better than Bryce. You're not wrong, but the bar might as well be the Mariana Trench. Like, doing better than Bryce Young doesn't mean you're doing good. Dalton was pretty good the last 2 weeks, but we got to be honest, this week he was not good enough. Chris, I'll pose the same question to you that I asked Jason.
It's hard to say. Just joking about Deontay Johnson, it's like, hey, Aaron, welcome to my world. It's hard to say. I think that you guys still need to do everything you physically can to have Bryce Young as your franchise quarterback. Again, as I said a few weeks ago, I think 2-3 weeks ago, either on this show or Out of Pocket or something like that, that Andy Dalton needs to be an instructor. He needs to be a mentor, because there is still hope for Bryce Young. There are still pieces there, but overall, you guys have a really tough schedule ahead of you with Washington. Washington's coming up. I read, Atlanta, Washington, Denver, who had a great game today. So that's
Denver's defense. Woo.
Mm-hmm. I started on fantasy. That's the only thing that's kept me in my matchup. So, it's tough. I think that it's a kind of come back to earth moment, but I don't think you guys looked the worst this week so far. I couldn't really put my finger on one, just an example, but I don't think you guys looked like overall the worst team out there.
I would honestly say the Patriots probably, but we will touch on that game later in the show. Chris, this next question is for you first. Do you think that, you mentioned that Carolina has a tough schedule coming up. Do you think that this team can bounce back in some capacity and look like they did the previous 2 weeks? Or do you think this will be a return to form from weeks 1 and 2?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I mean, overall, you're at home against Atlanta. And I said this at the beginning of the year, that Atlanta's not as good as as people make them out to be. They were not really my pick to actually win the NFC South. It was New Orleans was my pick. And they're a lethargic offense. It's like you can take the Arthur Smith out of the team physically, but you can't take him out mentally. And now he's in Pittsburgh. So we love that. But yeah, Washington, I think, will be a loss. I think Washington's a serious, seriously person to consider. We're going to go talk about them later, I believe. And then Denver, too, is a hard one. But all of them are on paper winnable. But it's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm. And next question for you, Jason. Now, I've been seeing some stuff online. I think it's nonsense, but people are saying that the Panthers are going to be dealing at the trade deadline. They're going to be getting rid of pieces, going for draft capital. Do you think that would be beneficial for Carolina to stock up on draft capital or hold the semi-functional core functional that they have together to try and bring Bryce Young into something, or just hit panic and rebuild?
Well, this is a big decision right now for Carolina. What do you do? Right now, if I were the Panthers, I mean, right now, Bryce Young wasn't drafted by the people on this in that front office. So if the Panthers are not going to put Bryce Young back out there at some point in time this season, get what you can for him, mitigate the rest of the year, try to make something of it, but get some draft capital. If you guys are going to fight for that first round pick next year, then do it now. If not, you're not going to get the value out of Bryce Young you could get for him now. There's a lot of teams out there that are hurting for the QB that I think Bryce Young would do better somewhere else, because it's one of those things that change of scenery a lot of times helps. Again, you look at a Sam Darnold, if you throw him back out there and he stinks up the joint again, he may never come back to playing professional football. But this is a big decision for the Carolina Panthers right now. What do you do? And after today's loss, after all these injuries, after the way that defense looks, the gauntlet you got to go through the next 3-4 games that I don't see you guys really being competitive in any of them. I think it's time to really get some draft capital, stock up for next year, and cut your losses.
Chris, same question to you.
It's hard to say. I mean, I definitely agree with Jason's points about going and trying to get draft capital, because overall, I don't think you guys will be competitive this season. That's not an insult against the team. That's just being realistic. I mean, hey, the Steelers will probably be there, give it 5-6 weeks. But look, I do agree that he's definitely someone that you're going to want to deal, but at the same time, the amount that you gave up for him, that in the trades in the draft and all of that, you kind of have to go and it's all or nothing with him. That's kind of the scary situation that you're in. I don't really know if the front office kind of has that same mentality, which is kind of a concerning thing. You're kind of at the point where it's like, okay, he's probably going to be at his capacity of value right now, but you also blew all of this to get him. So where do we go here? If I were the Panthers, I would try and stick with him. And if it turns out to be like a Ryan Leaf situation, not literally because he doesn't have the personality issues, but then you're like, okay, we tried, we messed up. It is what it is.
Well, Chicago messed up doing that with Mitch Trubisky when they traded a lot of the farm for him, and they kind of regrouped, did the same thing with Fields. So there is some history there with trading a lot of draft capital and saying we got to start over again. So we'll see what happens. Aaron, what do you think?
Oh, man, I feel like we just kind of got some pieces together that could actually be functional. We just brought in Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen. I feel like he has a couple years of productivity left if he can bounce back from his injuries. I'm inclined to say they should keep it together. I still have some faith in Bryce Young, hopefully sitting back and just learning from Andy Dalton can benefit him. I'd like to see him back starting later this season, fingers crossed, but I think they need to keep their pieces together. And real quick, this Panthers segment's ran a little bit long, but I have to touch on this. Dave Canales said something that really concerned me in the post-game press conference in reference to the offensive line injuries that Carolina dealt with. The reason for putting Bryce Young back in there in the fourth quarter, he said he wanted to get Andy out of there. So to me, That seems ridiculous. Like, oh no, let's protect Andy Dalton, but our former first overall draft pick, let's throw him into the wolves and maybe he gets killed. Jason, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's again, that's bad coaching, and that's also bad for the team. You know, these teams see those kind of things. These teams hear those things. What do you think Bryce Young's confidence is in his coaching staff when he hears something like that? What do you think the team's feeling going into the next game is when the coach gives you that kind of answer? That's a little sketchy. I don't, maybe Canales may not be there next year. So, I mean, again, this is the Panthers, again, unfortunately have a history of making some bad decisions, and I don't see them making any good ones here anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, they just gave Canales a 6-year deal. I hope he can right the ship so that we're not left just paying somebody money to not work. Chris, what do you think about Dave Canales' comments from the press conference?
Essentially the same opinion. You're here to win the game. That's what you're here for. Your job is to win now. That's the NFL. This isn't the MLB where you're kind of like, okay, we have 2-3 years here where we're going to have a rough outline or a rough image, script, blueprints, whatever. The NFL is completely win now. And you're going to go be like, oh, we want to protect Andy Dalton. We want to protect the veteran. No, the veteran is there to win games because the rookie is, or the Bryce Young, the high draft guy, is not winning games. So I completely disagree with it. I wasn't really big on them hiring Canales anyway, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think we discussed this like just privately before, but I really was not big on that pick. I honestly think that like Matt Rule would be better than him, to be honest with you. But
no, that is look, this isn't out of pocket. That was out of pocket, Chris. They should have stuck with Steve Wilkes 1,000%.
Yeah, no, I would say that. So, I mean, again, but I did not like the Canales. There was just something about him. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, no, me neither. But moving on, speaking of crazy games, blocked kicks galore. The Giants almost blow it late to the Seahawks. Thankfully, they pull it off. Jason, you said you were a little stressed about it earlier in the show. Let's go a little more detail into that.
Yeah, just again, the Giants starting off with a fantastic drive, getting down to the 1 yard line, then fumbling the ball, and then giving up a 102-yard run back for a touchdown. They did this against Cleveland where they fumbled the opening kickoff and gave up a quick touchdown to them, but ended up winning that game. They end up winning this game. So I don't know if it's they like that adversity starting off the game, but the defense showed up, 6 sacks against Geno Smith. They held that Seahawks high-powered offense to their lowest yards of the year. It was fantastic, especially in that 12th man, which is a hard place to play. So for the New York Giants to come all the way west and play in Seattle, and Daniel Jones, no interceptions, fantastic. He was only sacked 2 times. And then, yeah, you talked about let's call on Tyrone Tracy, 129 yards rushing. He should have got a touchdown. I think if he would have carried that ball on the 1 yard line, I think he would have scored. But the Giants, you know, the cardiac arrest I had when they were kicking that field goal and blocked it and ran it back. It's a great way to end the game, but let's try not to make that a habit, Giants. Let's try to win the game and do it the easy way.
Chris, what are your reactions to this pretty hectic Giants game?
A lot to say, to say the least. I mean, you know, I was playing against Tyrone Tracy actually in the aforementioned fantasy league. So I was happy that he did not get that touchdown. I thought actually it was him who fumbled it, but apparently it was Gray because I was watching.
That was Gray. Yeah,
I was driving and I had Red Zone on on the car audio. But overall, it was a very hectic game, and it was a lot more competitive than I thought it would be because, I mean, Seattle's a good team, and so are the Giants. The Giants have been really written off this year. I think that Daniel Jones has finally kind of done what he needs to do, stepping back in the pocket and just being the gunslinger that he is. And I think that that's a good play call idea. I think that it was hectic on one side, but yes, maybe neither team should have been in that situation. While I'm still talking, because I don't know much time, we're kind of running on this, I want to give a big shout out to Bryce Ford Wheaton, West Virginia University alumni, had one of the best catches I have ever seen against Iowa State in week 8, 3 years ago. I think week 8, something like it, week 7, week 8. One-footed, just toe drag right at the back of the end zone was amazing. Best catch I ever seen in person. And had some great kick return touchdowns as well in his career. And maybe we could have beat Pitt 3 years ago at Hines if Pitt wouldn't have concussed him. So I'm very happy to see him get his first career touch and first career touchdown on the same play. I was going bananas here at Deluca HQ.
But yeah, real quick, one last question for Jason to wrap up this Giants recap. Slayton showed up, no Malik Neighbors, Tyron Tracy filling in 129 rushing yards. Defense looked good, but they struggled on third down, red zone. They were kicking field goals. Do you think if they clean up their red zone performance, get, 1 or 2 touchdowns instead of only field goals, do you think the Giants could be a legitimately competitive team if they clean up these little mistakes?
Of course they could, because the name of the game is to score touchdowns. I mean, you can score points. I mean, again, last week, Thursday night, they got into scoring position 5 times and came out with 5 field goals. They were in the red zone twice, didn't do anything with it, stall on third downs. They were 7 for 16 during this game on third downs, which was a little bit better. But yes, you got to get down when you get in the red zone and you get in there first down and you're in the 10-yard line, you've got to score. And they have just had trouble doing that. They did really good today. Again, Slayton stepped up, fantastic game, not having Neighbors, but they don't utilize their tight end position. They don't do anything else to really get anybody else involved in that offense. And that concerns me is you can't be one-dimensional. You can't rely on Daniel Jones getting it to one guy. You got to really spread the ball. They did that a little bit, but not enough. And then at the end of the game, I don't know what it is with these coaches wanting to throw on third down when you're trying to run the clock. I don't get it. We saw that in the Buffalo Bills game, and that ultimately lost them the game. Why are you throwing the ball? Run the clock. Let the team spend their timeouts. I don't know what these teams are doing. The Giants did that. They literally gave Seattle life, and they got extremely lucky that field goal was blocked because, could have went to overtime. They could have lost that game. So I don't know what these teams are doing, but the Giants can turn it around. They are playing good football when they play smart football, and just sometimes they do some stupid things.
You mentioned Buffalo's horrendous play calling and clock management late in the game. That's a perfect segue into our next segment. I'm going to ask my 2 guests some quick questions about the other games, and we're just going to bounce around to try and hit some games before we preview the Steelers-Cowboys game. Chris, Wayne said it earlier, Texans win on a last-second field goal. Buffalo absolutely screws up with their play calling, 3 consecutive passes, and they punt it. Houston has their timeouts. Do you think that the Texans should get more credit for holding the Bills to only 20 points? Josh Allen had a horrendous passing performance. Or do you think Buffalo should take more blame than Houston should get credit for this loss because of their play calling?
I mean, the Texans did what they're supposed to do. The Bills definitely left a lot to be desired. That was one of the biggest clock management blunders that I have ever seen personally, at least recently. I think the Texans deserve all the credit in the sense that they just did what they needed to do. And this is concerning to me for Buffalo because that was that big hump, is getting past teams like Kansas City. Now there are new teams in the AFC getting past teams like Houston. And that is definitely representation. That's very concerning to me about Sean McDermott's ability to call plays, especially in clutch situations, because this was essentially a playoff game, or at least let's just say a mock playoff game. So very, very concerned, at least for Buffalo. And I think Houston took care of business and did really just what they needed to do, which is win the game.
Mm-hmm. Update about the primetime game. Prez coming in, it's apparently under a weather delay, which is good for us. That means we don't have to really rush through the last 7-10 minutes of our show. So that's great. And Rick 8-Bit, this segues into our next question I have for Jason. Cleveland was Cleveland's been terrible. I love that Cleveland is terrible, but that's a whole separate conversation, maybe for a different episode. Jaden Daniels has this Washington team at 4-1. They are looking really good. Do you think they have a legitimate chance to win the division?
Oh, yes. I mean, hands down. As long as barring any, knock on wood, barring any injuries, Jalen Daniels is legit. That whole team has literally rallied around him. I mean, I don't think they were picked to finish above 500 in a lot of different predictions, but he is on fire. You talk about an offense that's clicking, the run game, passing games. That some of the passes that Daniels had to Scary Terry were phenomenal. Drop in the. I mean, he's playing like a professional football player. He's doing what kind of C.J. Stroud did last year. Just, the rookies kind of been struggling a little bit, even though Bo Nix has a little bit of success right now. But Daniels is on fire. That Washington team is – I live here in Northern Virginia, where it's Commander Central, and the hype is real. People are – the Washington jerseys are out right now. For the last couple of years, people were hiding them or wearing them under their shirts. Right now, people are flaunting them everywhere because Jalen Daniels has that city excited about watching football. And I don't know if anybody's going to stop him. The Cowboys have their injury issues and their yips and some bad games. The Giants are the Giants right now. They haven't been playing very well. They're not playing consistent. The Eagles, again, you don't know what team you're going to get from week to week, the way they're playing inconsistently. So right now, Washington has the clear path to win the NFC East and really make some noise because they are a total team. The defense, offense, special team, all playing well. It's going to be hard to beat them.
It is. I mean, he's amazing to watch. I love watching him. Moving on, Chris. Sam Darnold looked human today. He looked like Sam Darnold has looked in the past. Do you think that this is him seeing the ghosts again, reverting back to his old ways, or do you think this is going to be a one-off and we're going to see MVP Darnold come back?
Well, when Adam Gase isn't your head coach, I think that definitely helps. I think that he looks human. He's not a great quarterback. He's definitely a fill-in. I could say that did definitely make him look human, but he was in London, and I have my own opinions about having games overseas in different time zones. But it's hard to say. I think it was a one-off thing. I think he's going to remain being kind of a consistent guy. He kind of reminds me almost of like Andy Dalton kind of guy in the sense that he can just remain, or even Joe Flacco, just remain consistent. Do I think that the Vikings are his end goal? Probably not. I don't think this is some Geno Smith style resurgence, but I think he's going to have a respectable career, and I think this was just kind of a one-off little thing of a combination of it being in London, and not everybody's doing good every week. So I've always liked Sam Darnold, though, so I could be biased.
Yeah. Speaking of the AFC East, the AFC East is looking rough, but the Dolphins avoid falling to 1-4. They get a ugly win against the Patriots that we briefly touched on earlier. I said the Patriots arguably look the worst this week. That might be up for debate, but the Dolphins almost lost. They get a late touchdown, failed 2-point conversion, but they hold on. Jason, do you think that if Tua does return this season, if he plays football again and can stay healthy, do you think the Dolphins can salvage this season and maybe sneak in as the wild card? And the earliest Tua would be back is week 8 against the Cardinals, and they play the Colts in week 7, and they're on bye next week.
That's going to be tough. The Dolphins don't look very good right now. That offense really, really struggling. They were, I think, a toe tap. The Patriots were so close. Polk almost had that touchdown in the back of the end zone. So the Dolphins were a toe away from losing that game. The Dolphins are not going to put Tua out there if they are falling back. I don't see a wild card coming out of the AFC East at all. I don't think it's close enough. There is just too many good teams in the AFC West. Denver, again, their defense playing well. If Nix can just, right the ship and be a pretty good game manager as a rookie, they will make some noise. There's just too many teams to jump ahead right now. The Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets. The Jets look old and slow. And that's just because Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers we know. You got him out there trying to throw the ball 54 times, and you have two excellent running backs out there, and you're not utilizing them. That's a huge mistake. So the Jets are doing Jets things. They're going to fall off. The Dolphins are going to fall off. I don't think they're putting Tua out there. They'd be insane to do that because they'll put him in danger of his life if they fall that far back. So right now, you got one team coming out of the AFC East. Maybe it's Buffalo if Buffalo doesn't keep screwing up like they do, but I think it's really Buffalo's division to lose.
Mm-hmm. Rick, again, thinking that bye week's going to give Tyler Huntley some time to bond with the wide receivers. I think that would be great. I think they have a really solid chance against the Colts. Next question, Chris. Ravens win in overtime, missed field goal, and then Derrick Henry rips 51-yard run, puts them in the red zone, chip shot for Justin Tucker. That makes it 3 in a row for Baltimore. Do you think they're going to continue this run of form and overtake the Steelers for the AFC North title?
It's going to be hard. I mean, we don't see them till week 11, and after that's week 16. So I think a lot of that just kind of depends on how both the Steelers and Ravens perform. In the meantime, there are still some winnable games for the Steelers. Do I think it's still going to be competitive by week 11? Yes, I do think that. I do think that they will probably end up potentially overtaking the division because Baltimore is just overall a better team. That was a great matchup. That Henry run at the end was really, really wild. And I think it's really funny how they didn't even wait to try and run the clock even more or try and get it at least to the middle for Tucker. They're just like, Tucker's like, I got it. I'm good. It's a little chip shot. I'm chill.
Yeah. Update on the weather. There's lightning outside of the stadium. It's still Heinz Field in my heart. I just got to throw that out there. It's never going to not be Heinz Field. I don't care. Heinz Field forever. But last question to wrap up this not rapid fire segment. The 49ers don't score in the second half. They lose to another division rival in the Cardinals. Jason, how concerned are you with this super inconsistent 49ers team and their two early losses to the Rams and Cardinals?
You definitely have to be concerned, especially that defense. Kyler Murray just made your defense look awfully slow. He broke that one touchdown and was pointing at the scoreboard while the safeties were still standing there. I mean, he is lightning fast. The 49ers look awfully slow. They have playmakers. I know they're missing CMC. I mean, I get it. But Mason, that stiff arm Mason, how you talking about Derrick Henry-esque, that stiff arm Mason had on that nice little run he had was phenomenal. But they just, I don't know, they're that weird team that they have all this talent. They can score touchdowns, but they just don't do it. They get in their own way. They make bad calls. They make bad plays. Brock Purdy is pretty consistent, but lately that team is just, I don't know. I'm definitely concerned if I'm a 49ers fan, because these are the games you need to win. You can't let the Arizona Cardinals beat you like that and run by you and make you look bad. And they made the 49ers look bad, especially in that second half. The 49ers did absolutely nothing on offense, couldn't move the ball, a lot of negative yards and negative plays. So I don't know. I'm concerned in 49er land if I am a fan. So we'll see.
Alrighty, moving on to the primetime preview. Hopefully the game's still going to happen. Pittsburgh's opening as 2.5-point favorites. That's a little surprising to me, to be honest. Dallas's defense is banged up. No Parsons, no Diggs. Those are two of their big playmakers. Deron Bland, I don't know what his status is for this game, but yeah, I don't know if Diggs has been officially ruled out. He was questionable. It didn't practice Friday.
I think Diggs is playing the last time I saw.
That's big
Yeah.
That would be big for Dallas if he is.
Yeah.
But Chris, we talked about it briefly. What are you expecting from this game? Are you feeling confident? How nervous are you feeling?
I'm nervous about it, but overall, I think it's going to be a very, very 1970s Cowboys versus Steelers style matchup, especially the fact that it's going to be wet regardless. It's raining there. I have the little pregame show just right up here on my phone, actually keep my weather updates. And yeah, it's going to be a very ground and pound kind of game. Overall, if we're going to win, we're going to need at least one or two defensive touchdowns. We're going to need to be like the steel curtain of the 70s against a very, very good still Dallas offense. TJ Watt, we really need him to step up as he always does, but we need him to step up even more. Minka Fitzpatrick, the names go on that defensive side. And I'm nervous, but I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a close game. And if I'm just going to say, because we already talked about the spread, I think that the Steelers will win by 1 or 2. I think that Vegas has it right, at least so far, if the Steelers are to win.
Yeah, and Trayvon Diggs is confirmed active. I just checked that. I think that's big for Dallas. But maybe he's still dealing with a bit of an ankle problem. Maybe he's not the Trayvon Diggs that we know and love to watch if you like the Cowboys. But with the Cowboys defense banged up, Jason, you'll take this question first. Do you think that the Pittsburgh offense will be able to move the ball a little bit better than they usually would and maybe rely less on the defensive touchdowns like Chris had mentioned?
This is going to be tough. I mean, they have Najee Harris and then who? Aaron Shampkin, I think, is their other backup running back. I mean, because Cordell Patterson's out, Warren's out. This game is going to, especially the Pittsburgh Steelers, is going to rely on Justin Fields, period. Can he run the football effectively? He hasn't had to run a lot this year. He only has about 145 yards rushing, which is not a lot for him. So it's going to really come down to him. Can he manage the game? Can he get those short yardage, third downs with his legs, keep the clock management, keep the ball out of Dallas Cowboys' hands? So I think this is going to be Justin Fields' game to win or lose against that Cowboys because they are banged up. The Cowboys still on offense don't look very good. They have literally no running game. I mean, you want to talk about a team that is almost dead last.
They are dead last in the
dead last in the NFL. They look terrible. So Najee Harris is going to have to run the ball. But after that, who else is going to step up? Pickens, as long as he doesn't get in his own way and doesn't listen to the chatter, I think he is an unbelievable talent. He just tends to like to shoot himself in the foot a lot. So I think if he keeps his head on and makes some big plays down the field, and again, Justin Fields uses his legs smartly, holds on to the football, I think the Steelers can come out and really whoop up on the Cowboys and make them look bad.
Yeah, and to touch on that running game, Dallas giving up 145.8 rushing yards a game. I think that works in the Steelers' favor. That'll be big. Fields, great mobile quarterback. Najee Harris, he can be really good when he gets going. But Chris, in your opinion, what do you think each team needs to do to win this game tonight?
Well, I'll start with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys need to do what they do best, and that's just score points. I mean, they still have CeeDee Lamb, they still have Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott needs to step up and be who he is, which is a very, very good quarterback. And again, in the rain and all that, I mean, the field conditions usually hide and stay pretty good. And then as for the Steelers, we just need to lean into that running game. We need Najee Harris to be the guy that we drafted. The reason that we drafted him, similar to what Jason said, is when we are passing the ball, which isn't very common at this point, George Pickens needs to just make common sense decisions, because there are some times where I look at this guy and I'm like, wow, you are legitimately one of the best receivers hand-eye coordination-wise in the league. And then there's other minutes where I'm like, this is really, really questionable how you made that decision. So good decision-making. We still have a great head coach. We have one of the smartest head coaches in the league. And again, I still think that as long as we can make those defensive touchdowns and we can run the ball the way that we actually need to, despite Arthur Smith's best efforts, I think we still have a chance, and that's what we need.
No one wins ugly games like the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin. So if it's going to be a sloppy game, Mike Tomlin wins these games. It's ridiculous how well he does with these kind of ugly games.
We always find a way to finish one game above 500.
They do. Rick making the point, Dallas is 2-0 on the road this year. They won 2 of the last 3 in Pittsburgh. Jason, what do you think each team needs to do to win tonight?
The biggest thing is going to be holding on to the football. If you're going to have some bad conditions out there, again, TJ Watt, I think he's the best defensive player in the league right now. He's a monster. He is a disruptor. I think if he gets in the backfield and really gets Dak off his game, and you see some fumbles and you see some turnovers, I think whoever wins the turnover battle wins this game. Because right now, these teams both have some questions on offense. They both have some questions on defense. So it's going to come down to who holds on to the football and who does something with those turnovers. So points off turnovers counts a lot. So if the Steelers can turn the Cowboys over, and same, if the Cowboys can turn the Steelers over, get Justin Fields flustered, fumble, get an interception here or there, and then score some points off of it, the Cowboys can come out of this with a win. But I think it's going to be one of those games where turnovers are going to matter.
And last thing for this segment, Jason, who do you think's winning, and how much do you think they're going to win by?
I got this by a field goal. I'm looking at, I'd say 17-10 Steelers.
17-10 Steelers. Alrighty.
Yep.
And Chris, you're going to go last here. You're the Steelers fan. I had picked the Cowboys on out of pocket. I'm more 50-50 than I was when I made that decision before. I think I'm still debating, honestly. I'm going to stick with my gut. I'm going Cowboys. I think they're going to win by 3. I think it'll be like 2017, something like that, low scoring, kind of ugly, but they're going to be just good enough on offense to pull it out. I think Trayvon Diggs might force a turnover. I think him playing is huge for Dallas. But Chris, you'd said earlier you think Steelers are going to win a close one. You got a score prediction for us?
It's hard to say. I mean, initially I was kind of actually throwing around a 17-9 or so, just because I was making the joke with a couple of my buddies about how, it's going to be Aubrey will kick 3 field goals, maybe CeeDee Lamb will score 1 receiving touchdown, then the Steelers will have like 2 scooping scores. If I'm going to go say an actual one, I'm just going to throw it out there, say 20. Let's just say 21-17, even though I said it was by 1. We'll just say 21-17 just for like I said, 2 random numbers I just thought of. But, it's going to be a close one. It's still in delay. There was just a lightning strike. I don't know if that's actually live or if that was a replay, because I have Football Night in America right up here on my phone. So as of like 2 minutes ago, there was another lightning strike on the convergence of the 3 rivers. So we'll see.
Hopefully the game still happens. I would hate to see it get canceled, but that's going to do it for week 5 of the Gridiron Address. Thank you both for being on. Jason, any last words before we head out?
No, Aaron, it's been a pleasure. Chris, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate being on here, man. This is awesome. Thank you so much. What a fantastic weekend of football, and to be a sports fan, unbelievable. We got all kinds of stuff going on. Football, hockey, you name it, we got it. Baseball playoffs, it's crazy. Again, guys, Sideline Savants, my host, Wayne, check us out Wednesdays, 12 o'clock. We got all your fantasy football knowledge. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Chris, any words before we end the live?
Pretty much same thing as Jason said, honestly. I mean, it was amazing. I really had a lot of fun watching college football this weekend. There were some crazy things to watch, which we'll probably touch on out of pocket this week. Tune into Dugout Debrief this Thursday at noon. I'll probably just be doing more playoff discussion. And Dodgers are currently trailing right now. I have the game on to my right, and David Peralta just hit a home run to extend the Padres' lead. Mookie Betts' home run was taken back, so we're a little bit frustrated here. But yeah, we'll definitely be talking about Dugout Debrief, and I am once again so grateful that you invited me on. And have a great weekend, y'all.
Appreciate it. And real quick, I just want to say, App State football is not what it used to be. I know this is an NFL show, but I need to vent about it, and I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to do it on Out of Pocket. This is not the Mountaineers team that I watched while I was in school. It is ridiculous. It feels like they're devoid of any culture. I touched on this briefly the other week with Michael on Out of Pocket. it feels like this team doesn't have any dogs. And they just don't have anybody who wants it. Defense is struggling with tackling. That'll do it for that rant. Real quick, Royals, I'm touching on some who won the boom picks this week. I do not know. I would have to go back and check that. Part of it's dependent on the Cowboys Steelers. I need the Cowboys to win for once. Hopefully they won't disappoint me. But game 2, ALDS, Royals Yankees tomorrow night. Jason, I think it's going to be another good game. Hopefully Bobby Witt Jr. can bounce back. But that'll actually do it for week 5 of the Gridiron Address. Thank you for bearing with me with my rant, and I will see you all next week.
Bye, guys.